We're up to Siman Shin Tzadi Vov. Din Arba Amos Sheyesh L'chol Adam Shabbos. That everyone has 4 Amos on Shabbos. What does that mean? Says the Mechaber, Shavu Ish Tachtov. Literally means sit each man in his place. Mikan, from here we learn, Shekol Adam Yesh Lo Arba Amos B'chol Makom. From here Chazal derive from this pasuk of Shavu Ish Tachtov that every person has Daled Amos within his own domain to carry. Even if he goes outside the tchum. In other words, even if he goes 2,000 amas beyond the perimeter of the city, and therefore he cannot carry, but he's got his own daled amas from where he is. And we measure the 4 amas according to in a subjective way, according to his own measurements, according to his personal amma. So if he's very tall, then he'll have a longer, bigger daled amas. If it's very short, then not. If he's tall but his limbs are very short, then we don't give him the daled amas of a small, because of his small arms, but because he's a regular sized person, just with small arms, we give him the arba amas of a regular person. Shekol achas mehen shisha tvachim, i.e. the shisha tvachim of each amma is going to be shisha tvachim and not 5 tvachim. Sometimes there are other measures. Says the okay, let's stop there for a minute. Shvu ish tachtov mikan pirush tichsiv tachtov katachtov, i.e. when lying down. Let's take a look at footnote number 1. Hainu. Where is it? Because we're basing it on the pasuk, right? So it says the footnote number 1. This pasuk of Shvu Ish Tachtov that we give each person 4 amas within his immediate vicinity to carry is only an asmachta. Min HaTorah mutar lechar b'yos medaled amas. Min HaTorah you can go more than that. Omnam l'desh is a tchum min HaTorah. But regarding that opinion which says that tchumin is min HaTorah, because of minchas chinuch, shehidrasha gemura, this is a proper drasha. V'lochein leyotzei chutz tchumin yesh rak daled amas, and therefore he actually has only daled amas. So this is a machlekes whether or not tchumin is a deraisa or drabanan. If it is a drabanan, then shvu ish tachtov is an asmachta. Otherwise, then this is the makar for it. For those who hold this deraisa. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah. Pirush tichsiv tachtov k'tachtov, i.e. It's as if it's underneath him, in that which is underneath him. Gufa shalosh shalosh amas. Now, the person's body is 3 amas in length. Va'ama kadei lifshet yod v'raglav, and an extra amma, the 4th amma, is given to him so he can stretch out his hands and legs. V'chumavu b'simin shim memtes. Ayin shom Mishnah Berurah. Ach, to shom ma'iri in tiltel ezachevis b'shus rabim. There we're talking about moving, carrying in Rosh Hashanah, which of course is 4 amas. So therefore you're walking 4 amas. But here, for Hochamari in Yotzuchus Tchum, here we're talking about when you leave the Tchum, you have the permission. It's not about carrying here, it's about you going. You're allowed to go. You can't go more than 2,000 amas beyond the Tchum, and therefore if you find yourself in that situation outside of the Tchum, then you're allowed to go only 4 amas, because that's what Chazal give you from Shvu Ish Mitachtov. Okay. Base. Sif Kotzen base. Afilu Yotzo. Now, where does it come from? Moshe Rabbeinu is talking to those people who went outside of the Tchum. He said to them, Shvu Ish Tachtov, you need to stay here. And therefore we derive from here, as I said, either min HaTorah or it's nasmachta, that Shvu Ish Tachtov means that you cannot go beyond for those people who went outside of the Tchum, they've got to stay put. They've got a Shvu Ish Tachtov. And we measure the 4 amas based on your own particular measurement. Ein el shin memtes Mishnah Berurah sif cotton gimel. Now, if you take a look at number 2, he explains Shom Kosov Shem Hish Orach b'Yosef. He's a very tall person. Moedinez arba amas b'zurashalei. We measure his 4 amas based on his own amas. So we go from the edge of the elbow until the edge of the hands. Different there is exactly if that's true, if it goes a bit further up, but let's say that. Therefore, if he's very tall and his long arms, so therefore his 4 amas is going to be longer than the other person, because it's a subjective standard. Consider weiter in the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Kotten Dalet, Nanas Be'evar. What does that mean? Shegufei Beinani. He's of average height. V'zroya Kotze, but he just has very short arms. Okay, now let's go into the Ramah. Says the Ramah. Ve'elu arba amas moedin muravachos v'hu be'emzoin. These 4 amas we measure in a generous measure, and he is in the middle of them. V'yesh omrim, which means, in other words, you've got 4 amas of each side of you. V'yesh omrim demutal alech arba amas l'chol tzad. There are those who say that he's in the middle of the 4 amas, and therefore you go 2 amas on each side. V'yesh omrim demutal alech arba amas l'chol tzad. No, when it says 4 amas, you get 4 amas in each direction. But to carry, you only have 4 amas with the diagonal. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton Hay. Ve'elu arba amas, rotzolema. Bein kashemoidin in chol adam ba'amas shalai, or bein kashemoidin arba amas bein this. However you measure the 4 amas, whether it's a larger amount, a smaller amount, whatever it may be, you do it in muravachas, rotzolema, Sif Cotton Vav, shehiyu moidin oisa berevach v'lo b'tzimtzum. You do it generously and not in a very constricted fashion. V'dad, the arba amas noiselem muravos, the 4 amas you're giving him is in the direction in which he's going. That you can go even in the diagonal. Because if you've got 4 amas in front of you, that's directly in front of you. But you can go on the diagonal, and the diagonal will give you an extra 1 3/5, 1.6. So in actuality, you could walk 5.6 amas, because imagine if you've got a square in front of you, you don't have to walk directly straight. You could walk along the diagonal, which is going to be 5.6. Okay. V'hu be'emtzoin, sif koten zayin, ta soifer, v'tzorech lichtov zeh, like he's going to explain in a moment. In other words, says the Mishnah Berurah, according to the first opinion, he's only got 4 amas in the direction in which he chose. So if I choose to go forward 4 amas, then I can't go backwards 4 amas. But according to the second opinion, the 4 amas that you're given actually is in all directions, which essentially means you've got you've got a square of 8 by 8 really around you. You can go 4 in any direction. לכל צד הוא באמצעון, כך צורך לומר, ורוצה ממקום שהוא עומד, יש לו לכל צד 4 אמס, ונמצא הוא 8 על 8, like I just explained. וכמו שכתבנו בהם באלי רבא, שכוסף יש לסמך על דעה זו למעשה. אבל לטלטה, when it comes to carrying, רוצה לומר, יש לומר יש אומרים הזה, according to this יש אומרים, פליגי רק ההילוך. The whole machlokes is regarding walking, whether you've got 4 in one direction, or whether you've got 4 in both directions, in all directions. Avalinian tilta regarding carrying a kli alma everyone agrees when it comes to carrying, all you've got is 4 amas with the diagonal, which is 5.6. That's the max you can carry. But in terms of tchumen, there's a machlokes whether you've got 4 amas in one direction or in all directions. That everyone agrees that the direction you choose to go in, you can carry the diagonal, even though it's more than 5, is going to be 5.6. Okay, good. So let's just finish off. Seif base. Wherever how do you define where your shvisa is? So wherever you are, where Shabbos comes in, in other words, Shabbos descended on you and the Kedusha came, if that is a residential area, even if there are no diurin now, that is considered your daled amas. And therefore, if you're in a town, that is considered your daled amas. You've got a very big daled amas. But if the place where you happen to be as Shabbos comes in is not mukaf l'dira, at Sosayim choshev kulei ka'arba amas. Up to Sosayim is considered arba amas. Va'afilu shavas betel gavoya. Even if you resided in a tall tower of a kama katsura, and you're in a place where you're sort of surrounded by shibolim, chashivika arba amas at Sosayim is considered arba amas at Sosayim. So he's got a picture of it in this one, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so you're in a place where there's I don't know if you can see it, but if there's sort of sheaves in your field around you, and you've got this place up to base Sosayim, cut around, or you've got a tel, which is like this mound, which is in the middle of a field. Let's say you can carry out base Sosayim, it's 10 tefachim high. So what are we saying over here? We're saying that if it's a place which is not mukaf ladira, such as in the examples in those pictures, ad sosayim choshev ka'arba amas. Up to base sosayim is considered dalad amas. Afilu shavas betel gavoya. Even if you're living in you're residing on this big pillar, that was that picture over here, betel gavoya, this big mound. Yeah, even if you're on that tel gavoya, or become a kutsur v'shibolim mukavos, or you're in this lower place where there are sheaves surrounding you, chashivi ka'arba amas ad sosayim. Up to base sosayim, that's considered an area of dalad amas, and therefore you'll be able to carry on the entire thing, or that either that raised area or where the sheaves have been harvested. Says the Mishnah Berurah Yud Aleph, Mukaf Ladira, Kagoyin Sheshavas Be'ir, Aisha Mokum Hukaf Ladira. So, for example, when Shabbos came in, you're in a built-up city, so then you have the whole city is your daladamas. Afilu Ein Bei Ata Dierin. Even if there are no dior in their residence now, Kagoyin Shenechrava Medierah, it was destroyed. Avuchosem Chimosa Kayemes. Let's say the city has been destroyed, but the walls of the city are still there. Then it still has considered as one big daladamas. Choshev kulaka arba amas sivkot yud gimel afilu oisem makom gadol ba'antuchia, even though it's like a very large place like Antuchia, umeina alpayim amma michutz oisem makom, and then you count the 2,000 amas from the edge of that city, but that whole city is considered dalad amas, and you only begin the 2,000 amas tchum beyond that. Ad sosayim sivkot yud dalad v'im hoya hukuf hahekaf yoisem sosayim. Now, if that area, i.e. on the mounds or in the field, is larger than Sosayim, so this whole thing of this being considered as 4 amas, or that being considered as 4 amas, that's only if it's less than Beis Sosayim. But if it's more than Beis Sosayim, then you only have dalad amas from where you happen to be standing. Sifkot and Tesvov, Betel Gavoya, Asar Tfachim, Vuadim B'Shibolim. The stalks have got to be 10 Tfachim high, or the mounds, that tel is also 10 Tfachim high. V'Shibolim Akifa Soisa, Sheheniach Gvulei Asoviv Meliktzar. So he sort of harvested out a little area, and there's and then you've got the tall grain around you. V'Hushe Kosha Hashibolim Yachad B'Inyan She'ein Ruach Mitzuyim Menidosa. And we're talking about a situation where you've tied the sheaves that they're not going to be sort of swaying in the wind. Because a mechitza which is swayed by the wind is not considered a mechitza. Yud Zayin Chashivika Arba Amas Ta'afal Gav Di Asorim Asuim Eleh. Even though it was made by itself, this mound, for example, Shema Mechitza V'Tel Afal Gav De'ein Lo Lamala Hekav Sviva. Even though you haven't got a border at the top around it, in other words, you've got this mound, but you haven't got a fence around the mound. Since it's the mound itself is 10 tfachim high, that's considered a mechitza. Okay, ad kan shin tzadi vav.